We're live. Who's going
Hello.
first? Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
hello, hello. Happy
I'll go
Wednesday,
last
everybody.
so I can introduce Jill. I'll go last. Go for it, Lorraine.
Hello, I am Lorraine, career counselor, coming to you from New York. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Thanks for coming in, East Coast, West Coast, and everybody in between.
Since we're coasting right along, I am Larice from the East Coast. I'm a psychotherapist and happy Wednesday. And I hope you all are ready to join us in this conversation.
And I'm Tracy Rubel, former West Coast, now in Heidelberg, Germany. And we're the Naked Three, getting real about all the elephants in the room. And we were inspired by our podcast that went live 2 weeks ago. And we covered Jill Deneen. We want to shout her out because Jill doesn't toot her own horn very well. So we want to shout out her book. She's a biologist who decided to take her lessons of biology and sort of translate it into different kinds of mothering. It's not a mothering advice book. It's just like looking inside at the different archetypes of mother that live in us. So we decided we talk about motherhood, inspired by Jill Deneen. And if you guys want to weigh in, we are going to respond to all your comments. You are part of the conversation, so comment often, and we will be able to see your comments. And then after, you can always email us at thenaked3@sidewalk-talk.org, and it goes to each of us. So any comments, questions, suggestions for topics, we'll take them. So when you heard motherhood, what comes up for you? Because we are all different stages of motherhood.
Hood.
Just curious.
Hood.
Hood?
Sometimes you just need to put on a hood and hide.
Hide? Really?
Yeah. Sometimes motherhood, you just got to hide.
Hide from your kid?
Hide from everyone, the kids, the husband, everyone. Sometimes you just need to hide. In your hood.
I just had one of those moments with my sons tonight. I don't know if you guys remember Lorraine, you had one and you have a girl.
Yes.
I have two boys that are at that age and they're doing that homeschooling thing. It was like a firecracker exploded in my house about an hour ago. There was so much energy in this house. And I'm like, oh my God. So I needed the hood for sure. It was insane. It's like I put my fingers in a light socket.
Wow. Well, of course, my kids are adults and out of the house, so I don't really get to have that experience, but I do have the memories.
Yeah. Well, yours are girls, right? So what was it? I'm curious, when you think about motherhood now, we were talking about this because your girls have been popping home here and there.
Yeah.
How is it? I think we were all surprised that you're like, God, I'm still mothering, even though they're growing out of the house.
Well, that's true because I think, as we were saying on last podcast, sometimes you don't have to be the mom, but you have to be the mother. And I think what my daughter was going through the past couple of weeks, I was the mother. And when my daughter came home in April, when the COVID started, I was the mother and the mom and the friend and the therapist. Sometimes as moms, we're expected to be everything, or do we just roll into everything?
Well, can you clarify what's the difference?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like sometimes when you're the mom, your kids are younger in my view. But when you're the mother, it's that mothering, as I guess some of the book that Tracy's friend wrote. There's different phases or different pieces of us. Sometimes we're the mom, sometimes we're the mommy, sometimes we're the mother, and sometimes we're mom, so, and sometimes we're all of it.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, Tracy, you go.
No, I was just thinking of also the mom to ourselves too, because I don't know about you, but when I was parenting my kids, I think I realized how much mothering I needed because I'd get so overwhelmed. And so I often think about, well, how do I mother myself too? Like that really came up for me in becoming a mom.
Did you need mothering? What do you mean you need? I
Oh my
mean,
God, I still do.
I don't
Still.
think I need mothering. I think I need more, um, or when raising kids, like compassion and less expectations. It's like as moms, we're expected to do so much, but as a mother, it's like, you're ready for college and, you talk about dating. But as a mom, it's like it's like an octopus and all 8 legs are doing something at the same time. But with a mom, you might have one come and it's one situation, or you're just having a conversation. But for me, when you're a mom, it's like, gosh, so it's a lot.
So my definition of what you're saying is you using the words completely different. So for me, being that mother was when my kid was younger and I was much more on hand. What does she need? Where is she going? How many soccer practices? How many singing rehearsals she's going to? Rearranging like my schedule around her schedule, that kind of thing. So that was like really on hands mothering type of stuff. Whereas now I kind of feel like I'm just mommy, I'm kind of like guiding her, advising her kind of thing. Sometimes I do have to put the mommy foot down, like for New Year's Eve. Like I heard on the Oprah show, there was a psychologist on, and he said that, because I always felt like my parenting style is so completely different than my parents. My parents are like old school West Indian, so I still have that foundation of strict manners and things like that for my child. But also I parented her in the way that she needed, that, she likes the schedule. She needs to know what to expect. She likes reassurance. She likes to be on time, things like that. And I took tips and tricks from people who I liked the way they mothered their daughters. So I really admired that. And then I was watching an Oprah show, and one of the psychologists said, I forget his name at the time or now, and he said, we go from a stage of being a parent to being a coach, and you have to know the difference. And what you should do is you should have someone that you trust that your child can go to in the event that they can't come to you, an adult that you trust and they trust, that is going to give them good parenting advice and will hold their secrets if need be, because sometimes kids don't tell their parent things and then they get themselves into trouble where they really need some really good adult advice. So I have a friend who my daughter Gabrielle goes to if she needs anything, that kind of thing, that holds her confidence and things like that. So there's been times where I just feel like now I feel like I'm her coach and I'm still her mom, and I still do motherly things for her, like buy her favorite cereal. But once in a while, I have to like make an executive mother decision and put my foot down. And the example of that is for New Year's Eve, she wanted to go out. And because of COVID, I was like, yeah, I'm not really liking how this whole situation is evolving. Like, I know I said initially you could go, but now I changed my mind because, we live in a multi-generational household, and she was mad about it and she was pissed about it. But like, I was like, yeah, okay, I changed my mind. Like, I'm the mom, I pay the bills, and too bad. So sometimes I want to be like reasonable and we'll discuss it and hear her opinion. But then other times I'm like, no.
And see, because my kids don't live in my home, I have a different view. It's more democratic because they don't live in my house and they're much older. So we're more like, we sit down and we started to do things together now that we did when they were younger. Like we made these earrings. She made these earrings, but it's like, I get more, it's like an investment and I'm getting things back. It's like they're more, hi mom, I'll do this. Hi mom, I made these earrings. I want to make, you have a pair. I'm cooking tonight, or just teaching me how to do Google. There's a new Google thing where we can meet on, and I just email the person and they respond to the email. She taught me how to take a picture of my therapy billing sheets versus putting them in the scanner. I do it with my phone, send it to my email. So it's like now the roles are sort of reversing somewhat. She's teaching me a lot of things that I need to know to stay up to date, even with music.
Reese, look at it's your buddy Kiera from the New Year's Eve party.
Kira.
I think of mom as more like a friend, confidant, investing in things, different roles. Oh, you want to hear something funny? That how I see like mothering and parenting, I always equate it to like a workplace environment, because like I always say, like, there are different types of moms, right? There's moms that, like how your friend describes in the book, like, and I always say, like, some bosses, they do like bad mom moves. Like, they favorite one, employee over another. I was like, ooh, that's a bad mom move. You know what I mean? Like, you're supposed to treat everybody equitable and, don't do any bad mom moves, those kind of things. So I always see like the work environment as like that family structure. Like, I think you mentioned it in one of the podcasts previously, about the alcoholic family and the roles that we play in that family. And I always equate that to group dynamics. So
but isn't that true? Excuse me. Go ahead.
No,
I think
ahead.
that's true. Like in every family, to me, depends on how many people in family. Every family is like a circus, and we all play a part. It was described to me in grad school. Like, if there's two of you, it may not be, but the more children there are, there's there's the clown. He or she always like to, divert what's going on by laughter. Then you have the ringmaster that's trying to keep everything together. So sometimes I see families, and I guess the mother would be, I guess, the organizer. But I think the more people, especially in my family, it is like a circus. There's a clown. There's all kind of things going on. But I, as a parent, have never believed in being my child's friend. We could be friends later on when we're much older, because I find it difficult to be the friend and the parent, especially when they're living in the home, because my job is to be the guidance, the executor, but not to say, oh, because I find a lot of parents that want to be friend are permissive parenting styles. I don't want to make you angry. By that? Permissive parenting means I prefer to be your friend, and I have high expectations, but I don't expect you to do much, but I want a lot from it. And the parent doesn't give a lot of guidance. They're more, I want to be your friend. I don't want you upset with me. I don't want you angry with me. So, their expectations are low. I'm an authoritative parent, always have been. I didn't even know it.
I could definitely see that.
Right.
I could definitely see that.
I mean, I'm not going to ride your back, but it's like, be home at 9, and I'm not going to worry about it, because that is it. If you're going to college, my expectations are blah, 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 blah. If you do these expectations, great. I'm going to be there for you, get you tutoring, give you hugs, whatever. But these are my expectations.
Tracy, let me ask you this. How do you see your parenting based on how you were mothered?
Based on how I was mothered? Like, how it compares?
Yeah.
Oh, geez Louise.
I mean, I know it's a long list, but like,
Well, I mean, I think that, like you, Larice, I don't believe in permissive parenting, but I also don't believe in over-parenting. Like, there's a lot of parents that like overschedule their kids. I'm totally
overindulging.
I'm totally into choiceful neglecting of my children, meaning I'm not your playmate. If you're bored, be bored, or I'll give you some chores to do, but I'm not here to entertain you. Does that mean that I like to hang out with them sometimes and play with them? Totally. Right. But that's the same as my folks. I think that the one thing that my folks had zero emotional intelligence, zero capacity to talk about feelings. Like my son came down today and he was very proud. He said, "Hey, I got a 2 on my German test today, and I scored higher than a lot of the German kids in my class." And I said, "Wow, you must feel really proud of yourself." And what I know is important for him is that I reflect back that he's proud of himself. He does not like to feel like I am co-opting his success for my sense of being a good parent.
Mm-hmm.
And he really liked that I said that back to him. "Hey, you sound like you're really proud of yourself. Are you feeling proud of yourself?" He goes, "Yeah, I totally am." And I said, "Awesome."
Right.
Well, because my parents were authoritarian, 100%.
Right. My parents are authoritarian, and I came from a place of realizing through my training as a counselor, it's like you really have to parent kids the way they need to be parented. Like, and that's different for every parent, like what they need, every
Yeah.
child, what they need. And I always tell my daughter, like going back to what you say, Larice, like you're not your kid's friend. Like I always tell my daughter, I'm like, we are friendly, but we are definitely not friends. We can have
Absolutely.
friendly conversation, but we are not friends. Don't ever get it twisted. Like you might come out of your face and think, well, we had this conversation before, but no, no, no. I'm your mom. And I said to her, it was funny. I said to her when we were having a disagreement about the New Year's Eve thing, and I was like, I'm sorry. I must have made a mistake in letting you think that you're telling me what to do. And that was my bad. But I'm the mom. And I changed my mind and I said no. So,
and she lives in your home, and she's in, and that's the thing too. Even as adults, that we have this conversation. Even as adults, when you're living in your parents' home, it's like when my kids were in college, they would come home, the room would be a mess, and I would go upstairs and be like, can you please clean this up? Well, I talked to a couple of parents, and they were like, how about having this negotiation? You leave the room like you found it, and maybe not go upstairs as often. So now, probably the last 10 years, and so when my daughter left Sunday, I thought, well, I'll just go upstairs and see if it's like, how I want it, if the pillows are. I went upstairs and it was immaculate. Nothing needed to be done. And it's been that way ever since college. My younger daughter came home for 4 months, junk everywhere in the room. When she left, it was immaculate. So I pick my battles and say, you know what? I don't have to go upstairs. I don't have to look at whatever's on the floor, because when they leave, she washed the laundry. That's the way we do it. When you leave, you take the sheets, you wash them, you fix the bed back for the next person. You clean up, you empty the trash. I gave her A plus 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 plus.
Well, it sounds to me like, Larice, that you do this beautiful line of holding this really tight container, but at the same time respecting her, so that she doesn't need to get into any sort of rebellious power struggles with you and flip you off on the way out the door by leaving the room a mess, because you're like,
right,
here's my expectations, and now I'm not going to ride your butt about it.
right.
And then she feels respected by you, so then she doesn't get into this power struggle with you. She just respects you back.
And it's so much easier. It is easier. I mean, and I got this from another parent, like I said, when they were in college, but it's so much easier. It's just like, it's so much easier. When she was home for this past month, it was like, well, what would you guys like for dinner? She liked to set the table every night. And I was like, sometimes we eat in front of the television, just my husband and I. But when she was home, she wanted to set the table. No problem. It was like, I like the adult that the both of them are. I don't always like the way one of them behaves. And I think birth order has something to do with that. But I love the way that we navigate as adults at this point.
Also, what I heard Tracy say is that you speak your son's love language, right? Like, so I took the love language test and I had my daughter take it too. And like really understanding like her love language, like she likes affection and cuddling. And I was never hugged as a kid, but every once in a while when I know she's having a bad day, like, I'm like, do you need a hug? Do you want me to hug you? And I also feel like of all the people that I know, like my daughter is most in tune with my emotions and I'm in tune with her. Like she could walk in the door and I could just look at her face. I'm like, what happened? She's like, how'd you know? I'm like, I just know. Like, I'm really in tune with her energy. And I'm in tune with strangers' energy too, but like particularly hers. Like, and when she says, I don't want to talk about it, I know when I should push and I know when I shouldn't. When if she says, I don't want to talk about it, I might circle back to it the next day and be like, I know you said you didn't want to talk about it. Is it all right? Were you able to resolve yourself? And she'll say, well, I need to talk to Joanne. Joanne is a therapist. So, okay, you have Joanne's number. Give her your insurance card. You're done. So I know that she's dealing with it. There was some issues she was having with her dad. She didn't talk to him for like months. And I said to her, yeah, you got to figure that out on your own. Like, I know you're hurting, but I know I don't want this to continue. I think you should continue to talk to Joanne about it and figure it out. but I don't think it needs to be left unsaid. I'm giving you my opinion. I'm going to tell you what I think you should do, but it's up to you. I'm going to highly encourage you to do it. And, you know, she figured it out. I mean, it took a couple of months, but it's like, I said to her, I was like, my job as your mom, you are never going to get 100% of my approval, because there are things that you are going to do that I am not going to like and I am not going to agree with, but I will always respect your decisions. I will always give you my opinion, whether you like it or not. It doesn't mean that I don't like you. It just means that's my opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but you don't have to search for my acceptance. Know that I respect your decisions. And there's things that she's done that I don't like, but I'm like, that's up to you. I respect your decision.
And I think too, as a mother, which is part of being a parent, is that with adults that don't live in the home, it's a very funky dance, and you have to be very mindful, because
you mean with your girls? Are you talking about your girls not living in the homes?
Right. And some of the friends that have adult children that are about the same age as mine, the advice sometimes has to be solicited. You have to ask for permission, you know, because it's like, you give the advice, then they don't want to hear it, but then they come to you and they want it. So it's like, you don't want me to give it when I want to give it, but you want me to give it when you want me to give it. And if I give it when when one of them doesn't want it, then it's like, it's a problem. So I've learned along the way, like Lorraine was sort of saying, one daughter is totally different from the other. And the dance with one child is different than the dance with the other child. So I've learned to dance this way with one and dance this way with other. One's a little more funky dance. The other one's a more easy flowing type of dance. So it works.
But I got a question for you. Oh, go ahead.
Go, Tracy. No, go, Tracy.
I want to get a little more naked than we're getting. I want to know the hardest moment you've had as a mom. Come on.
The hardest moment I had as a mom was when my daughter, I'll go first, when my daughter was in college and she wanted to shop to Whole Foods, because we always shop at Whole Foods. So I'm like, you get this allowance every 2 weeks for groceries, right? Because she was living in an apartment on campus with 2 other girls. Well, she went out and bought a cupcake, I think, for like $12, $6, $12. Anyway, when I looked in the account, it was a lot of money for a daggone cupcake. And so she had no money and no food. And she's like, Mom, I need more money. I'm like, no, you don't get more money for your food until next week, because that'll be 2 weeks. She's like, I don't have any food. I said, well, I'm sorry. I said to you that you cannot shop to Whole Foods. You need to go to that other place that has cheaper prices. Well, I guess she did not listen. So she called me every day, Mom, I'm hungry. I don't have any food. And I cried, and I don't know if she was pissed off or cursed, whatever. But every day she's like, I don't have any food. What do you have in your cabinet? She said, some peanut butter. I said, well, you better eat that peanut butter. And she was like, well, I still don't have any food. I was like, can you get food stamps? Go to the school office. You better get some food. So I was just trying to come up with anything. So she's like,
you were holding that line. Look at you with the boundaries. Woo!
So she was like, but I'm hungry. I'm hungry. No, Brianna, you're not getting any money until Friday. So I cried that night. She didn't know, but I cried that night. I was like, oh my God, is she really hungry? But if she is 4 days, she won't die. She can drink water. She can live. So
I am going to call you whenever I'm being wimpy with boundaries. Jeez Louise.
It was really difficult. So that Friday, I remember, because, we got paid every 2 weeks at that time. So that Friday, first thing I did that morning was put some money in her account for food, but she never did it again. She went to that other Wally World and started shopping. And then the other moment, my older daughter, she was in college, a private women's college that was very expensive. And we always said, if you need tutoring, let us know. We will help you. We will get you a tutor. So she didn't tell the truth about a grade. And we always said, you all are honor students, but in college, as long as you get a C, it will be free. She did not get a C, and she did not tell the truth. The rest of this semester, the next semester, It is yours. She said, what am I supposed to do? You should have thought about that when you were hanging out at 3 in the morning. Bye, Felicia. She graduated on
Wow.
the dean. She graduated on the dean's list, and now she is a master level professional.
That is,
Wow.
I have to
That's
say,
deep.
I'm
It was hard.
impressed.
That's
It was
deep.
hard.
People need to be taking some notes
That's
right
deep.
now, because this is the poop that parents don't do anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And my kids will tell you what my mom says she's going to do. She's going to do. She's going to hug you. She's going to tell you she loves you, all these things. But what she says, she mean. And I said in high school, no matter what you're doing, someone is always watching and ready to come back and tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
So make a choice. It's your choice. You make the choice. And when you make the choice to do what you do, there's always consequences, good or not so good. So you get to choose.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hey, real quick, for those of you that are watching, there's a handful of you watching. Please tell us a little bit about your worst and best, your hardest. Get naked with us. Your hardest parenting moments, for sure. Okay, Lorraine, you gonna go or am I going?
You go first. I always feel like we don't hear enough from you, so you go first, and then I'll go.
I hate telling these though, because my whole body. I had a really hard time parenting, but it wasn't with my kids.
Really?
It was with the other mothers.
Really? Why?
Oh,
You know what, you guys? Can I tell you something?
tell
The
us.
number one group of people that make me, like, I am confident. I can get on a stage and speak in front of 300 people. I can cold call Parker Palmer and ask him to be on I can, fearless. You put me in a room of other mothers, I am like a chipmunk in a corner.
Wow.
You wouldn't recognize me.
Really?
Yeah. I get really anxious, and I don't know if it's projecting my own mothering shame outward, but I also had a bunch of weird ass stuff that happened with moms where they would judge. I had these, I remember when my kids were like 18, the worst, most painful, I talked about on that podcast with Jill.
I heard you.
That where those women shamed me.
Yes.
Wait, I didn't hear the podcast. Tell me what happened.
Oh, it was awful. It was the word. I never thought this was possible, that this would ever happen. I didn't know that women were this cruel. I had to leave the library because one of my kids was like climbing the walls, and I thought he must be hungry because he's going through a growth spurt. He's only 13 months, but my younger son started walking really, like, he didn't start walking, he started running. So I had a 13-month-old and I had a 3-year-old. And that's a lot, like, in terms of like
time out,
one
ladies.
body. Yeah.
Excuse me. My eggs are about to cook. I was boiling eggs. I forgot. I'll be back.
Oh, go get it. I didn't know. I thought it was something sexual.
Yeah, I know. Me too. It was Tuesday yesterday. Like, what? What's going on? Okay, so wait, the kid was climbing the walls in the library.
So we walked across the street to Baja Fresh, and I'm like, I'm going to get this kid a bean and cheese burrito. Well, we're in the restaurant, and the 13-month-old takes off out the door and goes running down the street, and we're near like a very busy, like 4-lane street. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'd already ordered the food. You know, we have a 45-minute drive home. And so I asked my 3-year-old, because he's kind of, chill. I said, can you just wait here at the table for me? And I went running down the street to get the 13-month-old. And meanwhile, I'm parked right in front of the glass in front of the restaurant. And there's a group of women that are there on their lunch break, about 8 of them. And they see all this going on. And I'm so stressed out. My hair is like this, I'm like, oh my God, and you don't know how to handle it. You're like, I don't have enough hands to manage these 2 little creatures. So I go get him, and he won't stay. He keeps wanting to run. So I roll down the windows of the car and I buckle him into his car seat while I go in to get the food. And these women came in and told me that they actually said they were going to call the police on me for leaving my son in the car unattended. And I looked at them and I went, or you could offer to help me right now. You've just watched what's going on. You're going to shame me right now. That's what you're going to do. I couldn't believe it. And I had several more experiences like that happen at the elementary school. And I was so amped up by the time I had to engage with other mothers. I was just like on guard all the time. I just didn't feel safe anymore.
Wow.
That's my experience. I hate telling the story because I'm all like, oh, inside
I can
now.
hear it in your voice, like probably your nervous system is like,
yeah.
During an ugly argument, I'm dying. It was referenced to. Okay, Kara, thank you for sharing.
Oh no.
Wow. Wow.
Oh no.
Wow.
For those of you on YouTube, you may not be able to see this, but when Kira just commented that her son overheard her saying to her husband that in an ugly argument, I'm dying. And her son at 9 thought his mom was dying for a month.
Actually dying from a chronic illness. All right. So I have 2 things, but I think we only have time for one. So I'll tell the more recent one. No, the one that stands out most in my mind. So when a couple years ago, before I moved back home to my parents' house, I was living in an apartment and it was like a single dad and he had a young daughter, maybe like 2 years younger than my daughter. And at the time, my daughter was in her first year of high school and maybe his daughter was like in 7th grade. So he was dating a woman. And he would ask me, he was like, hey, I'm going out with my girlfriend. I want to leave my daughter in the house. Are you going to be home? I'm like, yeah, sure. No problem. He's like, well, I don't want her to be upstairs by herself. Is it okay if your daughter goes upstairs and just hangs out with her? As long as you're in the house, because I was living downstairs, as long as you're in the house, it's safe. He'd leave the door open, whatever. No problem. Long story short, he had an older son because like he had 2 kids by the first marriage and then the second youngest kid by the second marriage. Anyway, the older son looks on Instagram. This is when Instagram first came out, and my daughter getting drunk while I'm babysitting.
No.
Yeah. So needless to say, I lost it. When he came to me, I don't know what to tell you. I'm so sorry. My son came to me. My son wants you guys to move. He thinks that your daughter's a bad influence on his little sister. I was like so mortified. I told my daughter. Now, my daughter had been like, he'd been going out every Friday night for like months. And I said to her, I was like, go downstairs. Every penny that you have, give it back to him right now. And he was like, listen, you guys might have to move. And I told my daughter, I was like, listen, if he kicks us out, I'm not leaving. You have to leave because I didn't do anything wrong. You will have to go and live with your father. And I felt so horrible, but I knew I had to draw the line because it was just like, I was like, I didn't do anything wrong. And I wanted to teach her a lesson. And I had to hold the line, but I felt so guilty because I was a social worker and I would always feel like moms, single moms, especially, total stereotyping, would parent these kids. And when they were bad teenagers, they would send them to go live with their father. And then now the father didn't know how to deal with them. So the kid would be worse. And here I was doing the exact same thing. I cried for like weeks. I was like, I feel her. I can't give up on her. She's going to think I gave up on her. Oh my God. Well, of course, he didn't kick us out. He was a reasonable kind of guy. He was like, kids do this kind of thing. But of course, my daughter couldn't like babysit anymore. And like, he still calls me. Like, he didn't even care. Like, I cared more. And he said to me, he was like, she doesn't have to give the money back. I was like, no, she's giving the money back. And I made her give back all the money, that sort of thing. So, I mean, I think that was like the hardest. But it taught both of us a lesson. Like, she knows that I don't play games, and just and how she deals with her friends. And she always tells people, she's like, yo, my mom don't play those kind of games. So one day, like, the rule in the house is it's only the 2 of us. I cook, you wash the dishes. If you cook, I'll wash the dishes. We're a team. That's it. It's only to the 2 of us. So one night she was on the phone FaceTiming with her friend doing her nails like this. And I said to her, I hope you still plan on washing those dishes because I better not wake up and those dishes are not washed. So I don't know why you're doing your nails right now. And her friend was like, oh my God, I can't believe your mother just opened the door and she's just going to be yelling at you like that. And she goes, without missing a beat, she goes, Lorraine and Lisa are 2 different moms. Lorraine don't play them kind of games.
That's right. That's it. And I think it's sometimes I think it's cultural because I know a lot of my friends, and I don't know if Tracy, you were this way when you were growing up. A lot of my friends that were Caucasian, their moms did not go in their room. They knocked on the door and asked for permission.
Mm-mm.
And where I grew up, there was no knock on the door. It was like, I own this house. If I want to go in that room, I am going in that room. Now
I give my daughter a courtesy knock. I go like this.
I do, right. I did
As
give
I'm
my kids a courtesy knock.
I give a courtesy knock.
Right. I'm coming in. But if
a little different when you get boys because there comes an age where they don't want you to see them unclothed. But I also go in their room when they're at school. I'm like, yeah, no, it's my house. Same.
Right. Because girls, they don't want to see unclothed after they get a certain age either. But it's like in our house, my kids told their friends, you don't take a boy upstairs. The boy comes in, he better sit down in the living room. And you don't have anybody at our house when my mom or dad, especially my mom, is not home. Right. So it's just certain rules that I think I've noticed with certain cultures when it comes to mothers. And then other cultures, it's like, okay, you can drink at home as long as you're at home. Not where I grew up. You cannot. As an adult, maybe, but not as teenagers bringing alcohol in the house. No. But some of my friends in high school did.
And also, I think culture, Larissa, as you talk about culture, I know, like, I'm going to speak for my West Indian parents. You are a child till the day you die. Like, they treat you like a child. They don't respect you as an adult. You have to listen to them. And it's funny because sometimes I think to myself, I'm like, I'm 50. What's going on here? But I have something really funny to tell you. And we could end with this because this is a really funny story. It's about condoms. So
it's right up
condom time.
It's right up perfect way to exit.
So it's a parenting moment. So because I was a social worker, because I have a degree in public health, my thing is I'm all about prevention. So the college that I work for, they give out condoms to students. So we had Planned Parenthood had come in and give a whole bunch of condoms to us. So I had brought condoms home to give to my daughter when she was in high school. I was like, I don't know if you use them. I don't really care. I don't want to know. But here they are, just in case. Be safe. It's not about pregnancy. It's about STDs because some STDs are the gift that keep on giving, whereas pregnancies, you're able to at least explore options. So that's where I came from with that. So I get a phone call from a parent, and I'll give you the real abridged version. And she's West Indian, Trinidadian like me. So single mom. And so she called me up. She's like, hi, Lorraine. Yeah, I need to talk to you. I said, sure, no problem. I'm at work. I'm in between appointments. How can I help you? She's like, well, did you give Gabrielle condoms? I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, because I have my daughter here on speaker and I'm trying to get to the bottom of something. I'm like, okay, what is it that you're trying to get to the bottom of? She goes, did you give your daughter condoms? I'm like, yes. And you could tell she was ready for battle, but she didn't expect me to say yes. So she had instantly deflated. She was like, well, what did you say when you gave them to her? I'm like, I don't know what you mean. She's like, well, what did you say when you gave them to her? I was like, I'm not sure what you're asking, but condoms come with directions. So where are you going with this? She was like, well, I found these condoms in my daughter's room and she told me your daughter gave them to her and you gave them to your daughter. I was like, yeah, okay. I did. And she goes, well, why would you do that? I was like, well, I'm not sure if you know what I do for a living, but I work on a college campus and I was a high school guidance counselor. So I kind of know what kids don't tell their parents and what they need to have. So where are you going with this? She was like, oh, because, I found them in my daughter's drawer and she said your daughter gave them to her and she was holding them for another friend.
Why was she rambling in her drawer?
Because it's her house, Larissa. Stop playing.
But I'm saying she's in college.
You just said that.
What are you talking about?
Right. Well, I mean, college students, I don't ramble in their drawer as a
no,
college.
they were in high
This
school. They were high
This
school.
mom doesn't
Oh,
wanna
oh, oh.
know or believe their daughter's having sex, and
Right.
now she suddenly
So,
has to confront the fact that she doesn't know everything that's going on in her daughter's
right.
life and is pissed.
So this is where my daughter will say that I am kindly disrespectful. So I was like, wow, it's really a shame that this kid that your daughter gave the condoms to didn't have the type of parents that we are, where our kids could come to us and tell us
Right.
anything.
I mean, I found a condom. I found a condom after my daughter went to Columbia for the summer. And
no, but Larice,
it was no big deal.
But the thing is that this woman did not believe her. She really truly believed that those condoms were not for her kid.
Oh, she was in great denial.
She really believed that.
We just need to take a pause. We just need to bow down to the Lorraine side swipe there, because that was genius. That was a genius little. Well, it's just too bad for this third kid who these condoms must be for, that her child doesn't feel so comfortable as our children feel with us. Oh, oh girl, I'm gonna have to write that one down.
I mean that I hope that parent gained some insight moving forward. Because even if the kid didn't use them, some kids get the condoms because they're like at Columbia, they were free. When we took our daughter for the summer, there was a huge bowl. And she took one. I guess, okay, everybody's got one. I don't want to be left out. But she brought it home after the 6 weeks. And I found it. I'm like, good, she had some condoms. So I don't understand parents who live in the dark. It's like when my daughter went off to college. Let's have this conversation. If you feel like you want to be sexually active, let's keep it real. You can get birth control. You can get free condoms. I will buy you the best. It's your job to come prepared. Even if he brings a pack, you bring the best.
Yeah. I always tell my daughter, birth control is women's responsibility. I don't care about the Me Too movement. You have to protect your body, because at the end of the day, it's your sanctuary and you can't have someone else being responsible for that.
Right. And I think, and I like for us moving forward, one of our conversations should be.
No, I just said, woo.
No, hold on a second. Tracy, so Larissa and I have girls. How would you have that conversation with your boys? Because I know I have friends who have boys, and that conversation is totally different, because one of my good friends, she has 2 boys, and she always says, yeah, if my son gets someone pregnant, I get it, like he has to take responsibility, but I know at the end of the day at 3:00 in the morning, it ain't my son getting up with the baby. You know what I mean? So the conversation is really different. So I was just wondering on that end.
Well, thanks for asking. I think that because my sons are so not interested in sex right now, and because I want to be such a sex positive parent, I probably talk about it to try to be the sex positive parent more than they would like, because they're like, oh God, don't talk about condoms and birth control one more time, right? So I'm more interested in saying whatever is fun, and you shouldn't feel ashamed, and as long as you wash your hands and you wear protection, because, people
I agree. I mean, because boys are going to be normal boys. Girls are going to be most likely normal girls. And I had a friend that she made her son quit college, because he got a girl pregnant. I don't know if I totally agree, because when the family found out she was pregnant, they were like, it is your responsibility. And whatever you need to do to take care of this baby, you will do it. And that meant for him, he had to quit college. But a girl did the same thing, and her parents took care of the baby while she finished college. So I guess it depends on the parenting style.
Well, I was that baby, right? I mean, I just found this photograph. So my mother passed away last year, and I was going through a bunch of photographs after she died. And I got to tell you, I was pretty choked up. I was sitting with my mother-in-law on my bed, and I found this photograph of this 17-year-old, 18-year-old girl's bedroom, and it has like a rock star. They had the rock posters. You did that too when you were girls, right? And the people that you were like lusting after, posters on your bedroom wall.
New Edition.
My mom had all
Donna.
that stuff and a crib next to her teenage bed. And I went, oh, she was in high school and she had me. And she was like an 18-year-old and had a little baby in the crib next to her. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that was my parents. So my parents got married.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
Magda.
my parents got pregnant in college second semester. Yes. I remember that. But I do want to say this because I know we have to end. I think, like Tracy, you said with what was our most difficult. I think that with mothering, I think the conversation, we might need to have a part 2 and like our biggest mistakes and what we learned from it. Because I've made some mistakes. Like people think, oh my God, you're such a good mom. But I've made some huge mistakes. And the thing that I feel like I've learned is that I've apologized to my daughter, but like, yeah, that was my bad. I'm really sorry. And she was like, yeah, that hurt when you did it. I'm like, I know it did. I didn't know better at the time. So I think we need to have a conversation about mistakes that we've made. Because it's about
I'd like to see a conversation too about adult guys at some point, about adult guys. I keep hearing this from older teenagers and young adults, men that are emotionally unavailable. It's like that is why relationships are not working, because the men are not emotionally available. So is it something, you have boys, Tracy, so is it something that parents are not teaching the boys, that their emotions matter? Because if they don't, they will manifest later on when they get into a relationship with their partner. And
that's a big question, and I don't want to generalize on that one, because it feels like we would need to pull out some research, because we each have our own experience. But that one gets political. There's a lot of patriarchy wrapped up in that one. Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, staying away from the political part, just emotions, and it doesn't have to be men or women, but it just happens that I think from the group that I'm in, they're saying that the men are not emotionally available. And is there a etiology of to why it happens? And I think it's because we don't teach our young boys that it's okay to be emotional.
Yes, so my recommendation is Ashanti Branch. He works with inner city youth, and he's been an educator for 16 years, was on the podcast. He also runs a nonprofit. Hey, Ashanti, if you watch this, I'll tag you, because he'll come watch. Gavin Newsom's wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, did a documentary on his work with inner city youth, and it's called The Mask You Wear. And it's all about how we teach boys to be tough and not to feel feelings. If you don't want to watch the film, just go find the 3-minute trailer, because it shows you right there. We teach boys not to wear the mask you wear. Really, really good. And it's a great nonprofit to donate to. If you want to donate to a great nonprofit, he works with inner city, a lot of Black boys, but he also works with white boys, kids that oftentimes come from broken homes or don't have two parents in the house, where they're told they have to be tough. Yeah. And he's amazing.
It's interesting that you're bringing that up, because Larice, because I just recently watched an Iyanla Fix My Life, and it was about a family unit that was like breaking down, and she brought in a male therapist to talk to the husband. And it was just really, really interesting how the male therapist had him watch how Iyanla talked to the wife and the wife's interpretation, and how he just had to listen and not say anything, kind of thing. So it was just really interesting. So that probably be another episode. So,
and I hear
hi, Harry.
Harry. This is my life, is teaching men that didn't get these skills. Oh, it's called The Mask You Live In. Ooh, here, I've got the trailer right here. I'm going to put the link in the We've got to run, guys. We said we were going to keep it to 45 minutes, and we're just 8 minutes over. We're going to be back in 2 weeks. What's our topic in 2 weeks? Narcissism. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, because that's what the podcast was on, right?
That's what the podcast was on. Narcissism.
All right. Narcissism. I'm going to do my homework. I'm going to listen to the podcast first.
I think it's a tricky topic, personally. It's a tricky topic to get into.
Well, I'll be completely out there with my own narcissism, so you guys can pick on me all you want. No, he's pretty good at talking about the different levels of narcissism that we all have, and that capitalism actually foments narcissism in us all, which I thought was a really interesting point. it's sort of
I listened to the podcast. I did listen to his podcast. Some of the things I agree, but a lot of it I just listen.
All
right.
Okay.
Well, good to see you, ladies.
Look. Okay then.
All right, guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and you ladies stay right here.
Okay.